Welcome to the Post Float Podcast.
Ciao, ciao, ciao. What's up, Levi?
What's up, Jesse Butterfield?
Fixing the old mic here. Gosh, are we blurry? I can't tell.
I don't know. Maybe you're blurry. Are we blurry?
I
don't know. It's okay. If we are. I think we are blurry. We might be.
What's going on?
It's okay.
There we go.
There it is. All right, man. We're not blurry anymore.
All right. How was your flow, Levi?
It was fantastic. How was yours?
So good, dude. I really didn't want to get out.
I know. That's what people don't realize, too. They always think an hour is so long. Like, how can I make an hour go faster and just get the benefits?
Oh, man.
90 minutes, 2 hours. Oh, they start becoming your happy spot, too. No?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
No, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to remove yourself from once you hit that state of just like blanket of nothing. Dude. It's hard to get out. I had to pee this time, though, so I got out probably right at an hour. I got out and music started going. I was like, all right. So,
oh,
good
man.
timing.
Yeah, so you wanna set up the people with our intention that we took in with us this week?
I can do that. So Jesse and I discussed pretty much right before our float. I was like, hey, we floating on anything today? And we didn't really have anything. So Jesse thought maybe we should talk about personal responsibility, I guess, or taking extreme ownership of your own life or whatever that might be. But the basic premise is just being personal responsibility. Float on, first of all, what that is, maybe where you could implement it, what metrics you might utilize to represent the implications or the implementation of doing so. And so that was pretty much it, right?
Yeah, man. You ranted for like 4 hours last week about the work and lit a fire under my ass, burning so bright that that whole bonfire analogy just kind of came to life for me. And
yeah, I mean, these floats been getting me fired up the last couple of weeks. I don't know why. I'm coming out and ready to go.
Oh, dude, yeah, I totally. So I totally fell asleep today. I mean, I started, I'm in there doing the breath work, and then I start thinking about the work, and the personal responsibility, and what does it mean to me, and how I can apply it to my life, and how I can measure it. And the next thing I know, Brian Ortega is teaching me Jiu-Jitsu. I was like, oh.
Maybe
Brian.
that's a metaphor somehow.
I know. I was thinking about that too, because I was like thinking because I just getting this gym membership, and I was like, but I want to go to jiu-jitsu too, and I'm trying to like figure out how to integrate all this into my life. Personal responsibility, right?
Right.
And next thing I know, like I'm waking up from like Brian. I'm like, Brian Ortega, come back. Like we were rolling. Where'd you go?
So is he teaching you things, or is he just submitting you left and right?
No, he was very kind.
Nice,
He's a gentle teacher.
Nice, that's awesome. Did you learn anything?
I learned I suck at jiu-jitsu.
So you learned something you already knew?
Yeah, I have no grandiose illusions about that, man.
Those thoughts were grandfathered in. That's awesome, man. Where were you training at?
I don't know. It looked like just a little gym, you know, kind of like how LBJJ when we went there, when they were on O Street, just kind of like it was a tiny little place, and there were people there, but it was like not the rolling was happening, like we were in motion, and it was just like it was so weird because I could hear him talking to me like
helping you out.
While we're in the like, there's no way he would have been able to, but
he's like calmly telling you what to do as he's tossing you around. All right, Jesse. Man. So put your arm over here. Shrimp out this way. Okay, there you go.
Oh, man. Because I don't know. Probably just embedded in my head just because I've been watching so much UFC lately.
Yeah.
Just
I'm sure, man.
Oh, man.
So before you started dreaming about getting tapped out by Brian, were you able to define what do you think personal responsibility is?
Yeah. It was, kind of. Because like you had asked me right before, what is personal responsibility mean to me? And I'm just like, fuck, I don't know. Like, basically, taking care of myself, like being independent, like not having to rely on other people and worrying about, because like the whole arthritis thing threw me for a fucking loop when I was, 29, and I couldn't sit or stand or work, and I didn't know what I was going to do or what the hell. And I'm just like thinking I'm going to be in a wheelchair before I know it and all this. And I just don't want to have to rely on other people. More importantly than that, I don't want to put that burden on other people. Like, I don't want to be this thing that people have to carry. Like, I think it's better if you're the thing that people can rely on, and eventually, somebody's going to need me that I love, and I don't want to have, and I did actually think about, like, the fact that I am going to die one day, and I did, it's like, I don't want to leave a $10,000, $15,000 funeral bill on top of, my loved ones having to miss me. So I don't want to, it's like, I want to take the personal responsibility of, not leaving that kind of footprint behind, where it's like, oh shit, you gotta, because that's happened to me, like I lost a loved one, and he's gone, and it's like, now, like, it's like the family has to figure out how to pay for this damn thing, and it's like, on top of grieving, it's like, that's just something, it's just one less thing that people would have to worry about. And it's funny because I actually had on my to-do list today after the podcast to go home and start writing my final will, like, just to get that thing, get that ball going, like, I don't know. You never know when it's going to happen, and I'd rather be prepared. Like, just so, yeah, I don't know. Ethics kind of came involved, and you had asked me what ethics are before we got the thing. I'm sure, I don't know. I was just like, kind of summary response is the golden rule. Like, as long as I'm, checking that box of the golden rule, it's ethical, right? But and then I kind of started thinking, like, what about me? Like treat others how you would want them to treat you. It's like, well, how am I treating myself? Like, that's my personal responsibility too.
For sure.
Like, I don't know. Eventually it all disappeared, and Brian Ortega and I were just rolling around.
Yeah, dude, that's the metaphor right there. It's just basically all the words that come in your mouth are like rolling around jiu-jitsu, trying to look for angles, trying to look for what works, what doesn't work, what's effortless, what do you have to put a lot into, what can you do yourself versus, Brian can't do anything to make you better. I mean, he can help teach you, etc., things like that, but to summarize, like, kind of what you were saying right there formulated a lot of what I was thinking about in the simplistic fact that waiting for other people to solve your problems. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's tricky. That's very, very tricky. And it just sets up a spiral effect of, if you're going to sit around, if it's somebody else's problem or it's somebody else, it's not your fault. I don't know. Let me set this up a little bit. But to summarize, is basically, if you need other people to solve your problems, you might be sitting around for a long time. Because you're literally, you've given up all control. You've given up all power. You haven't utilized the personal responsibility that you could possibly utilize to maybe do something simple. Whereas, the problem might not be your fault. It might not be within your control. But it is your attitude towards the problem. That's one way where you can take personal responsibility for this said problem. Whereas if you're just waiting for somebody else to change it, you might be sitting there for a really long time. Really long time. You're putting all of this on somebody else. They need to change something and vice versa. So the way I started going through it in the float right in the beginning, I got to do it right away for some reason. See if I can. It's so weird when you're in the float tank and then you're sitting here talking. You're like, okay, wait. Remember being in the float tank? How is it going? How am I going to articulate this? Because this isn't something that we come out of a float tank and we work on this in a clear and concise manner. This is directly from the float to then talking about it, which is so differently represented when it's in your mind and you can hurtle around very easily. But then when you're trying to speak about it clearly or concisely, you realize where you get the hiccups and everything else. So this is really fun to do, and this is why we do this. So to bring in all the hiccups and everything else and try to clearly define this, where I started out was a notion kind of similar to this, and let's see how it comes out verbally, is I kind of created a dichotomy a little bit. And this was kind of the scenario I'd set up. So, for example, when you have a problem, again, if you're waiting for somebody else to solve that problem for you, you might be waiting a long time. So therefore, the best thing you can do to solve this problem is to change your attitude towards the problem and then now you have personal responsibility. Whichever way that grants you, I don't know, but you now have some form of control to do something about it. So I was thinking about this in the context of, like, tribal versus individual mentality and tribal, responsibility versus personal responsibility. So that's kind of where I started divulging on this a little bit.
Okay.
But the personal responsibility definition was pretty easy for me, is just basically realizing that whatever insinuated to create whatever situation it may be at that time, what personal responsibility is, in my definition, is whatever decision you make from whatever scenario exists is yours. That's your responsibility. The situation itself might not have been your fault. You might not have had a hand in it, but somebody rings the doorbell, you come to the front door, you open the door, there's nobody's there, you look down, there's a baby sitting there. You didn't do that. That's not your fault. But the very next decision that you make is your responsibility. And then any subsequent consequences or things that then are attributed to that first distinct, response is also your responsibility. So from there out, you're responsible. So that's where I was taken in from the personal standpoint. You didn't put the baby on the porch. That's not your fault. So you have two choices. You're either take the personal responsibility and make the right choices, because that's literally what it is. You have to therefore make a choice. Do you just, pretend like you didn't see the baby? Do you do something about it? That's on you. Whether that was your fault that the baby is there or not, that next decision is literally your responsibility.
It's like the perfect hypothetical for what we're talking about.
I believe I read that in a book somewhere about the baby one, but I don't know. Anyway, it kept entering my head in the float tank. So then it divulged from there, though. So I was like, okay, cool. So we set up the fault scenario where you can first represent the difference between what is your fault, right? Because that's a big one too. That's a whole nother topic of conversation where maybe you got hit by a car when you're a kid, your leg got messed up, etc. So now you have this standpoint of like, well, I'd love to go do these things, but I got hit by a car, and that can be a slippery slope into victimization, where now it's everybody else's problem that you can't go do what you want to do. Therefore, that's where you have to come in and now change your attitude on the whole situation, take personal responsibility for it, and then now move forward. And I'll continue on that here a little bit, because eventually this is going to conclude to kind of some of the things I came up with.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking, because I lived through that. I did that. I was in an accident.
Okay.
I didn't have a driver's license for 13 years. And I had anxiety about it. And then and people had to drive me all over. I was fucking playing in bands and shit, and they had to drive. I never drove.
That's a good point, man.
And finally, I got just sick of my own bullshit and decided to change my attitude about it and started working on it. And now I have a driver's license.
Yeah, and not to say that you consider yourself a victim. So like, no, I can't drive because I have anxiety and blah, blah, blah.
It was a cop-out for years, dude.
That's easy to do, man. But here's the other cool thing, and maybe this isn't the best way to represent this, but we just use it since you brought it up.
That was my personal experience. But
so here's a cool thing. Let's just assume, you don't have a lot of purpose in life, meaning you're kind of, just mulling around. But let's just use this very simple, example of you deciding, hey, man, I'm kind of being a victim here. I'm putting everybody else out of the way for me now because I don't want to drive because, it's scary or whatever, and I'm not going to take the personal responsibility to change my attitude, figure out what I can do for myself to take care of myself, therefore help everybody else out so they don't have to drive me around and everything else. But, and maybe this did happen to you, but for this example per se, just making that decision right there to take personal responsibility gave you purpose.
Ooh.
It does. It's a nugget of purpose, man.
Yeah, it was.
It really is, dude. So that's where I think there's a bigger thing here. There's a bigger theory to be unraveled. And this is where I was going. So using that as an example, perfect example, that gave you purpose. That gave you responsibility. It's good to have that personal responsibility. Yeah. It makes you purposeful.
That
now
purpose
you can do something
nugget
about it.
Felt good.
Yes, it feels good, dude.
Purpose nugget tasted delicious.
Not having a purpose nugget is probably one of the catalysts to almost everything you see, man. And this is, I could be wrong. Again, this is just me coming through the float tank. So where the dichotomy happened was you got that purpose nugget. You took that personal responsibility, that individual responsibility to do this thing. What you could have done, and not saying you for this example, but what could happen otherwise, let's say you don't have that purpose nugget. Everybody wants a purpose nugget, man. You know where you can go find a purpose nugget? Join a team. Right? Mm-hmm. So this is the dichotomy. There's the personal responsibility versus the tribal responsibility.
Okay.
And this is kind of what I was thinking about in the float tank. So I'm not saying like my 5-year-old daughter or anything like that. She needs to be tribal. It's what's going to keep her alive, obviously. But there is a point in time in your life where that you need to shun off that tribal purpose nugget. Take the personal responsibility. You're going to get purpose nuggets from that no matter what, because you have to do the work. So, but if you don't, and you don't have that purpose, it's very easy to jump onto a tribal place. So they have an idea already, and you're like, okay, well, I guess if I jump on this tribe now, this idea right here already exists. So, okay, it gives me purpose. The only problem is that idea then becomes part of your identity, which isn't a personal identity. This is a tribal identity. And now whatever, and that's very defined by that tribal thing. This isn't a personal thing that you can look into a mirror, take accountability for, adjust metrics, etc., change through time. This is a part of this group or organization or ideology or whatever it might be. So now you've subscribed to it. And if you're not careful, if you didn't have purpose before, now you do quasi have purpose, because that idea has become part of your identity, which, i.e., gives you that same feeling, I guess, even though it's kind of a falsehood, right? But it's very defined. So anything that butts up against that group identity or that group idea that has become your identity, you have to defend tooth and nail. I mean, so you're not taking any personal responsibility. You're taking this tribal responsibility for this overarching ideology. That's where I see the dichotomy happening there. So, i.e., if you do take the time to take the personal responsibility, you're probably going to have a easier time not getting caught up with that. But if you don't, it's going to be very easy, because everybody wants purpose. So where's a quick and easy place to get it? An ideology. Super easy place. Now you got a group mentality. You find other people that think like you. It gives you that validation, everything else. And then your metrics kind of based on, I guess, other people in the group you're hoping think that you're an awesome group member, which is a terrible metric, right? You have no idea what people are thinking about you. You just don't. But you're always trying to put up these things to get that validation, etc. Okay, now you're representing. You have to do that forever. So you have to defend this thing consistently all the time. And that's where I see this could go either way. So my idea is, if you take the personal responsibility, if you're honest with yourself, if there is maybe some victimization there that doesn't necessarily need to be there, and you can shun that and you can take that personal responsibility like you did, it's a win-win. It's going to give you this ability. It's a byproduct as purpose. It really is. In any endeavor that you take as an individual, you're going to get that. The cool thing is, it's not defined in this group context where you have to fight off everybody else that doesn't agree with that exact thing. It's just you. Mm-hmm. And if you're bettering yourself, it's like we always say, it's going to rise all tides. But otherwise, you are in a tribal situation where you have to fight off all competing tribal situations to force an idea. Mm-hmm. That's where I think it creates a bigger picture, if any of that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think it's because, so I think, if you don't take personal responsibility for yourself, you need purpose.
Right.
And so a natural gravitation would be to
tribal.
Join a group.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to blame people for that, because, hey, it's here's our group. Yeah. Every society is just pushing, ideas, left and right. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it is. It's but it gives you an easy objective.
Yeah.
Because you have an enemy now.
It fills a void for you.
Yeah. And so, that's a pretty simple one to go down.
And I understand the ideology might be, the fulcrum might be to, we want to better the world. We think this thing, they think there's injustices. We're going to go right these wrongs. But the thing is, what you find yourself doing is consistently looking for wrongs to right all the time, man. You need that.
Right. It's
that
like
fuel.
The hammer,
Yeah, like you give a guy a hammer, you're going to look for a nail, man.
You're
going to look for a nail all the time. And that's why I don't know and I don't see that as being the best approach. And it takes me back to kind of some other thoughts I had about personal responsibility in the tank was, it's interesting because let's say, I don't know, whatever this tribe is, they're going to go fix something in the world or whatever. Okay, great. Can every one of those individuals say that they've fixed that same thing in their own individual world? Are your finances in order? Mm. Is your health in order? Mm-hmm. Is your house clean and organized? Is your room clean and organized? Are the things that you're trying to organize for everybody that is subjective to this level? Ideology done on your own personal level already? And if not, why the hell should I listen to you, man?
Right? Yeah.
Like, if you can't take that personal responsibility to already do it yourself, whether it's health, whether it's diet, whether it's finances, just within your own thing, don't try to change the world economy if you can't even handle your household economy. If you're in shambles, if your life's a wreck, and you're just grabbing onto this tribal thing for its purpose, dude, what are you doing?
You're talking directly to me, man. Because I'm in the float tank going, okay, what's the personal responsibility? Bills. I got to pay my bills, man. I'm just can't let anybody else pay my bills because I've been just fucking it off forever.
But that's the thing. So who are you to say that, well, this is what we need to change with the world economy right here, Levi? Like, cool, let me see your finance plan. How you doing? Let me see your budget. How's it look? Got it all shored up? Show me how you did that. Now, how does that represent to a world economy that the best economists don't even understand? What are you talking about? It's very hard to be precise in your aim, man. If you can't go to your own home and utilizing that analogy of, do I have my life organized? How are you going to organize everybody else's life? What's your position? Whew. So then I kind of started thinking about like a football team. And I don't know if this is going to come out right, but in my mind, it kind of made sense. Like, there's a bunch of guys on a professional football team. Let's just say Green Bay Packers or something like that.
Go Big Red.
Or a college football team. But let's take it further that, because it's so hard to become a professional starting football player, right? It's got to be devastatingly hard. But in order to be on that team, they had to take all the personal responsibility steps within their own life to be the best at all those things, to be in that team, to do that job, which is just a game. Okay, you're not going to take any of those guys outside of that and plug them into a scenario like, well, what do you think about the world economy? What do you think we should do here? What do you think you did that? That's not what they've personally done on a responsibility level to that point. But they did everything to be on that team first. So for that one thing, you trust them to probably be the best at that. Doesn't mean you plug them in and everywhere else. So, but think of everything they had to do to be on this professional team to do this one objective. Win the game. That's it. The Super Bowl, whatever. Win the number of games that they need to win to world the championship. That's the only objective. There's no worldwide changing social stuff. There's none of that. But they had to do all that just to get on that one team. So me and you can go hop on any team right now that's going to go change the world. You get my point? What if you had to do all the responsibilities to get to that one overarching objective? Good Lord, man. It's going to be hard to get on that team.
Yeah.
And those are the only people I want on that team, man. If you're going to be on the science committee or whatever that is, you got to be that guy that's obviously dedicated their personal, individual responsibility to being the most dedicated person to that task.
Yeah.
And those are the people I'd want to join together. But just jumping on teams willy-nilly to give yourself purpose and everything else is silly. These guys already had purpose. Their purpose wasn't just to go do this thing. They took the personal responsibility to get done what they needed to get done. Like, I've been listening to David Sinclair about anti-aging and everything like that. And like, he's obsessed with that. So yeah, let's talk to that guy a little bit about that and be honest and seek the truth. And if you go down a path that doesn't bring you to truth, then you X that one. It didn't work. The theory was irrelevant. Instead of just like, you need to take all these contradictions and everything else and make them sound good, because otherwise your tribal team thing is now gone, i.e., you have no more purpose. You do whatever you can to tooth and claw and fight for that thing to remain relevant. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what's easier, doing that or just taking personal responsibility?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's where I'm coming back to.
Gotcha.
So there's all that, or you can just, I almost said like something terrible there, would have came off wrong, but just accept the adversity, accept everything else, take personal responsibility for yourself, and what you're going to find as the byproduct of that is everything that you wished you had, just naturally from doing it.
Say that again.
By taking the personal responsibility, right? The byproduct's going to give you everything it was that wasn't already there. If it's a searching for purpose and meaning and all that stuff, and I'm going to go change the world, make it better for everybody, all that, those are great thoughts, man. They're wonderful thoughts. But if you haven't done this with yourself already, I don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
You get my point? And I know that sounds really rude and like very blunt, but I don't want to hear a word you have to say if I can't come and see that you've done this in your own life already.
That's fair, I think. Like, I mean, and not that everybody has to be like an expert, but I mean, just you're doing.
What I'm saying is, most people that are in these tribal situations, whatever it might be, where did it come from? Where is it? And so what I think a lot of time is like, it's easy to bitch. Like me and you could go stand in my driveway and be like, yeah, this is why this didn't happen. Damn Lancaster County, this, that, blah, blah, blah. I could do that all day long. I could spread the blame everywhere and try to make myself feel better and be validated for my inadequacies or anything that I didn't get accomplished or why I didn't get accomplished. Or I could take personal responsibility for it and do the best I can to make it happen and be responsible for the mistakes and everything else and play within the context of, you know, the game without cheating and everything else and figure it out. That's going to give me more purpose than me just bitching about it all day long.
I just had an idea about that. Like, so the cool thing about, like, I think when you take personal responsibility and you do fail, it doesn't damage your identity. Right? Like the failure is a stepping stone to learning and growing, while in the social, the tribal situation, when the tribe fails, your identity fails.
Possibly. If you take their idea or
if somebody attacks the tribe, they're attacking your identity.
It could be, yeah. It's easy to accidentally do that, to take an idea and make it your own personal identity.
So many people I talk to, like, just trying to have just genuine political discussions.
Yeah, that's a perfect one. Political's going to be hard.
It's like, I try to make, separate. It's like, I'm not attacking you.
Yeah.
Like, it's this idea I think is a bad idea. And I think that, like, the idea is bad. You're not a bad person. Like, you're not going out and hurting people.
Right.
But I just think you're kind of thinking, that this is a good idea when it's not.
And we're all guilty of that, right? It's
easy.
I
do it all. I am the guy that has done it, man. If anybody's done that, I have done it, man.
It is. It's easy to accidentally take an idea and make it part of your identity. 100%. And then what you end up doing is, instead of defending the idea or discussing the idea and trying to articulate what you think's well the idea and hope somebody else, picks that up, or vice versa, here's something they say that you pick up that makes your idea even more plausible or less plausible, whatever it is, make it a better idea. Instead, what they hear is you attacking their identity and you're defending yourself, not the idea.
Yeah, and it like really closes doors to just getting
closes
anywhere,
doors,
man. It's like talking in circles. It's like, come on, guys.
I think you just summed up exactly what I'm talking about. That's a tribal mentality.
Yeah.
Which, dude, we're pretty tribal. I get that. But there's a point in your life where it is very, very, very beneficial to shun the tribe and focus on the individual.
Yeah.
I don't know what age that is. I'm assuming it's probably like 16, 17, 18, something like that. There's a point when that needs to happen. I really, truly think there's a point. After 60 minutes floats, like I truly believe like this dude is sound. But I was thinking about it a lot in there. And like, obviously I'm not going to encourage my daughter right now at her age to do that. She needs to be tribal. She doesn't need to accept extreme ownership of the fact that if we lose our house, this is my fault, Dad. No, the tribe is keeping her alive. She needs the tribe to survive.
Yeah.
But there's a point where that has to turn into an individual.
Right. And then once you develop that individual, you integrate it back into the tribe.
Maybe, yeah.
Or like the tribe as a whole.
You could do anything.
Society,
society,
like,
people, Homo
we
sapiens,
have to have
everything.
tribes. Like,
right.
we're tribal
But
species.
just subscribing to a tribal representation, I think it just could be problematic if you've never actually looked at yourself in the mirror and said, you know what, it wasn't my fault, but I am utterly responsible. And I have to do something about it, and nobody else is going to fix this problem for me. And whatever decision I make and any consequences that may be associated with the decision are still my responsibility. You have now taken ownership of that. If you never get to the point where you take ownership for it, you're hiding from it all the time, man. You're trying to brush it off and pretend it's not there. It's not going to work. Now you have to seek other things to fill that mental void there that you just created, whether it be being a victim of the circumstances, whether it being other people's problems, whatever it is, something has to. It just can't not exist. It exists either way. So choose how you want it to exist, man. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and
man.
I think it's key. I think it's key because once you do accept that personal responsibility, like I said, a natural byproduct of that is purpose, whatever it is you might be doing. And then you could be more precise in your aim. You could be more analytical. You can set up your metrics better so that you could represent, are these associated with the values that I originally associated them with? Are my metrics sound? Are they quantifiable? Yeah, it's all possible. how do you possibly do that? If your metric is, I'm part of this tribe and I hope everybody thinks I'm doing a good job of this tribe and represent that way and everybody likes me and that this idea is the best idea ever, whatever it might be, some form of government or the opposite of that, just like against a form of government, whatever that might be. How do you quantify those metrics? What do you do? And I couldn't think of any. It'd be the same thing as your metric is I want everybody to like, or your value, I want everybody to like me. How do you quantify that? You don't know what people think about you. And then they're worried what everybody, so it's like this weird thing. Everybody's just worried that everybody else looks good within the tribal context. It's different if, you're a hunter-gatherer tribe and you live in a village and everyone has their specific roles. You're taking personal responsibility for you hunting, you cleaning, you doing this, and we work together as a cohesive unit. We're talking about billions of people now, and we don't live in tribes of 40 or 50 people, and it just doesn't quite work that way.
At least we haven't figured it out anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I always think about that Dunbar number where he says the only people that you can have a personal relationship with is 150 or something like that.
Yeah,
which sounds like a lot. But
damn, how many Facebook friends do I have? Like a fucking 1,000?
Right. It's a difference from an acquaintanceship to what does that represent? I don't know.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Not really. I've seen so many people do it though. And I'm not telling people what to do. It's not like I'm part of this tribe of like personal responsibility.
The personal responsibility tribe.
No, man. I just, if you could nudge somebody or something, that's great, man. If you could, not hold their hand, not tell them what to think, not put them on your tribe. But I just think there's that once we started thinking about this in the float tank, I didn't realize how profound. Bing! I know. I heard it coming out. Would be for example, take an individual, make a hypothetical individual that's been victimized. You could have the worst upbringing ever. Yeah, that definitely had an impact on who you are today. There's the nurture and nature. I'm assuming it did. Why wouldn't it? But okay, you got this problem. I guess let's just assume that you assume it's a problem. My parents weren't very attentive when I was a child. They were more worried about themselves. It's affected me now. I go to therapy and I figured this out. I figured it out, man. It was because when I was 14 years old, my dad did this. Great. Cool. Okay. Now what do you do? Nobody can go change that. Nobody else can fix that problem. It's happened. Now you get to take personal responsibility for it. I just don't know where the road begins and where it ends. And what I'm saying is I've seen a lot of people just remain on the road forever, and I actually feel kind of bad for them because it's a constantly searching for the validation of you're correct and your victimization, whatever it might be. Whereas, honestly, from a tribal perspective, there's all these different tribes trying to save the world. That sounds great, right? Make the world a better place for everybody. But I think if everybody had already taken the personal responsibility to take care of themselves, to do what they need to do, to take ownership, that makes everybody's world better. When you took ownership to be like, no, man, I'm going to stop having people drive me around. I'm being a victim of my circumstances here. I'm going to learn what I got to do mentally, physically, ethically, legally to learn how to drive again, to be comfortable driving. You made everybody else's lives better by taking care of yourself. By taking that personal responsibility, you actually helped a ton of people. So if everybody was doing that, it just seems like
it's a snowball effect too, man. I can feel it just from now that I have a driver's license. We only have one vehicle, so I take the vehicle on Monday, and I get to go and run around town and do shit that
and you don't
I
get
need
the excuse
to do.
of well, I was gonna go do this, honey, but since I don't drive and I was at home and you had the car, so I just play video games.
Which I have,
of course,
guilty
Jesse,
of doing.
Of course, that's why. Honey, I totally get it. You're such a victim of your circumstance. I understand you have the anxiety, you couldn't drive. I get it. That's understandable. Fuck that, dude. Dude, go get a bike. Go get a skateboard. Learn how to do something else. Get your work done,
dude.
Take the personal responsibility. It all comes back to that.
And it feels so good too now that it's I can drive with the windows down by myself.
It
turn
feels
the radio
pretty
on.
nice.
Now I'm gonna just drive to the gym, and now I'm taking personal responsibility to drive to the gym to take care of this sack of shit that I'm living in. You know what I mean?
This meat vehicle.
This meat vehicle that I'm. And dude, oh man, the more I float, the more I just notice and question this separation of body and mind, man.
Yeah.
It's a trip. Just because I think about it, which I have my nephew, and I'm just like, how do I describe this to him? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Is this your hand? Are you your hand? Where are you? Are you in here? Did they cut out this part of your brain? Or are you in there? Like, where are you? I don't know.
I don't know either, man. I always think about it the opposite when I float, is how interconnected the mind and body are, and how they're not distinguishably mutually exclusive in the least. Not at all. I really think what you do and put in your body and how you react is definitely going to affect how you think, how you feel. And so I just think it's, that's just the way it is. I know so many people are so intellectual. It's like, hey, this is that. I don't have to worry about this down here, She's getting kind of heavy in here. I guarantee if you switched up one or the other, there would be a juxtaposition. Mm-hmm. You're going to feel better. You're going to be clearer.
Think clearer. Yeah.
Things, they're connected.
Yeah. It's like, how ethical are your intellectual decisions if you're not thinking clearly?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. If you're, treat yourself like a Formula One race car versus, a Pinto that you're putting old sludge inside of or something. I mean, how
you don't put bumper stickers on a Cadillac
unless you have some good bumper stickers.
Yeah, I put a couple bumper stickers on this caddy.
Yeah, so it segued into me also thinking about like Jocko Willink.
Drinking some of his tea. I am drinking some Jocko tea. What's up, Jocko?
Yes, you got that brought to you, didn't you?
Somebody brought it in. Like a floater brought it in for us.
No, it was the Navy SEAL here in town. Or no, it wasn't. Never mind.
No.
It was a different guy. That's right.
Yeah,
he hooked you up with some Jocko tea. Yeah. That's awesome.
Discipline equals freedom.
And that's another point, man. Like you bring up people like Jocko or something like that. I'm not saying you gotta be Jocko. I'm not Jocko. That dude's up at 4:30 every morning, just like seizing the day, like carpe diem. Like he just lives it and breathes it, man. Like he is the most disciplined, dedicated dude ever. But that goes back to what we were saying last week too, versus progress versus perfection, man. Just progress. Mm-hmm. But if you take that personal responsibility and now you have a purpose, you can build the metrics off of that for progression. Yeah. If you don't have that, you have no metrics, you see no progression. I don't get it. You're constantly like, it's a constant instant gratification to be like, team, man. Anyway. So going off on that, but it did segue into me thinking about personal responsibility versus extreme ownership, like Jocko talks about, and where that can reside. And I don't know. I was thinking about, obviously, business owner, so I have employees. I'm a boss and everything like that. And that was a big changer in my life when I realized I thought I was pretty good at personal responsibility. Obviously, I harp about it here, but no, man. There's so many instances, like hypothetically, I'll just make some of them. Like maybe I come in one day and I'm like, dude, butter's like something broke. The tank wasn't working right. Whatever temperature. And I'm gonna blame it on. I'm like, dude, you didn't do your job. You're not being diligent. That's
who, me?
It's not my fault. But the truth is, it is my fault. It's 100% my fault. And if I accept that extreme ownership over that, it gives me that power back because I didn't articulate well enough to you. I wasn't on top of, delegating the task accurately. I'm not making sure that you are also representing it the way that I was trying to articulate it. It's literally and utterly my responsibility. So it's not your fault. It's my fault. And once you can do that, and it's a different context for everybody. Like me, it's easy with employees, right? But if you're in a leadership role or if you have kids or anything like that, if your kid's acting like a little brat, if it's just being a little shit or whatever, you're like, God, my kid's just being a little shit. I don't know what's wrong there. Take extreme ownership for that. That's not your kid's fault.
No, yeah.
It's your fault.
Ooh.
I shouldn't say fault. It's your responsibility. That's you. You stand up and say, whose fault is this? She goes, it must be her teachers or her peers or you. Raise your hand. Mm-hmm. Raise your hand, and now you have the attitude to do something about it. You can do that. That's your responsibility. And when you take that extreme ownership, it's beautiful. But I realized, yeah, man, I didn't do that in the context of like throughout my life. I've had many roles where I was a supervisor or anything like that, or like in the military where I'd have, trainees underneath me or anything. It was their fault if it wasn't done right. I told you how to do it. You're supposed to do it this way. You did this wrong. Why'd you do this wrong? Let's reprimand you in this context. But the truth is, that's my fault. And when you take that extreme ownership, oh man, it's a game changer. It's a real game changer. It's kind of a mind fuck in the beginning, but it's a game changer. And then you'll catch yourself how many times throughout a day or a week that you're consistently putting the blame on somebody else when really you didn't do your job as a leader, as a parent, as a boss, whatever that might be, whatever in context you can put that in your life.
Yeah, man.
A band, anything, man. It's true. It's not there. It's your fault.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like one thing I kind of noticed, because like you do a really good job at that, by the way. Like you do take that.
I'm slowly getting better at it.
When shit goes
at it, man.
to, you know,
I said stink.
when shit hits the fan here, you're just like, oh, that was my bad. Like,
it is every time. I can't think of a scenario where it wouldn't be.
And I definitely try to take that with me. And I do kind of notice that, like, and I noticed this in the tank too. Like it kind of, for me, it's kind of segued into the better problems scenario.
Yeah.
Where like
they all integrate.
Where it's like there's these mountain high problems in front of me, or is there? You know?
Yeah, I did that today too, man. I actually had that same thought.
It's like, or am I just choosing to focus on this shithole problem that I can't do anything about? You know, and it's like, or I could focus on what I can do something about.
Right.
And pick a better problem, and take personal responsibility for these problems that I can do something about. And it's like, to me, those are better problems to tackle, because that is something I can do.
Right. I like using the analogy now of like I'm building this garage. And so I use this garage, like there's a lot of components. You know, there's footings underneath the concrete, there's foundation, there's walls, there's rafters, there's beams, there's all this stuff. It's overwhelming, man, if you don't know what you're doing. And I love taking personal responsibility, so I try to learn as much of it as I possibly can, to be involved as much as I possibly can, instead of just, not that this is wrong in this example, but yeah, you economically can afford it, give that responsibility to somebody else, boom, you have a garage. I don't get anything out of that. I like building things, man. I love it. I'm not saying just building walls, but I love it. It's a passion of curiosity, man, as part of my individual responsibility to learn more. There's an endless amount of things to learn. What does this do? I don't know. Where do these anchors go? I don't know. Why do they go there? Oh, that's why. Okay. Why? Because it pushes on the foundation this way. And if you don't have a footing here, it does this. I can learn all that. So it's just a personal responsibility of my own that I like to kind of, not that I have to become an expert at it or specialize in anchors and concrete, but I've learned something and it's great. And I can take that with me and maybe represent it later in life. Like I need to fix something, I can take that personal responsibility to do it myself. But when you first delve into something like that, whatever it might be, it's super overwhelming. So this mountain of problems, they might be all integrated into the same problem. You know, like I'm talking about, like if you're building a garage, you're building a house. You need to look at the whole problem enough to understand that then you can break down into the component parts. But if you don't, but when you take that first 10,000 foot view, man, you lose sleep on that stuff because you know nothing. And then you start losing sleep when you're like, okay, I got that part. Well, I go down here, but what do you do with this little corner thing? Oh God. And then that corner thing. And then when I get there, and then that can snowball really fast. But as long as you can break down what you necessarily need to know now. So you go through the stumbling and everything else, like, okay, I got one I can focus on now. Once I focus on that, obviously we're going to have to do this next portion, but it doesn't have to be done simultaneously. So then I can turn and focus on that. So you can break those problems down into their prioritized list. And man, but dude, it's a tricky one. Like this garage is a perfect example. I know it sounds silly. I'm great with it in life now, but when I go to learn one of these new things, the resourcefulness of trying to find those answers is overwhelming. You know, you got building codes, you got inspectors, you got all this other stuff, and you're just like, I don't have all this information. You start freaking out. But you have to be able to represent those, and like you said, to break them down into the problems that are necessary. Be very precise in your aim. If you're looking at them all at the same time, you can't be precise at all. Like it's too much. There's too much noise. But if you can make sure first and foremost that you're looking at the right thing and be precise in that, you're good. If you look at the wrong thing and you're really staring at that, but it's not the precision that you needed, you're off too. So it's like you said, this mountain of problems have to be able to be broke down into the better problems.
Well, you got the mountain of problems that can be broke down into the boulders, and then the boulders can be broke down into like the rocks, and then those rocks, that's something you can start chipping away at.
It's manageable.
And then you chip away at that rock before you know you got that boulder chipped away.
And you feel really good too, because a byproduct of solving problems is, you know, serotonin release and everything else. I mean, it's a win-win, but you do have to accept the price that comes with doing that. And that is part of the price. You're going to have these moments, but you took the personal responsibility. You didn't victimize it out and be like, oh my God, I can't do it. It's these guys and that's their fault, blah, blah, and just run away from it. You chose a personal responsibility to stick with it, to surmise it down to that rock, to break it, to make it manageable, to learn something, get the serotonin release, and move on to the next problem. Before you know it, it's like, that wasn't very hard. You always end up realizing that this task was a lot easier than you anticipated. That's what's so almost embarrassingly funny whenever I do any of this stuff. Once you're done, you're like, oh, that's it? And then like you go to tell somebody, like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what I did. And they're like, okay, cool. You put 2 rocks together and you did this thing. That's awesome. You're like, but it's not for them, man.
Right,
it's for you. It's your journey. It's your thing. It's your purpose at that time or whatever. And then it just, like you said, makes your bonfire bigger and gives you other stuff to see and things that you can now implement your new skills into, and then have the same freak out moment.
Oh, yeah.
And then go again, man.
Yeah.
And I don't need to go join this tribe and do this thing, man. I can bring my life up better. Nobody else has to. It's going to bring up people's lives better that are around me. And the more people that do it, the better, and rises all tides, and we move forward. Instead of looking for a fucking problem. Like if you're constantly looking for a wrong to right all the time,
that's got to be depleting. You know what I mean?
Dude, you have to do it. You subscribe, man. That's your role. That's your job. I don't know. I don't want to do that job. You know,
I did kind of start thinking about like instant gratification and delayed gratification in there a little bit. I don't know why. I was thinking about George Harrison from the Beatles planting trees that he'll never get to see. Like I saw this thing on him like a long time ago, but yeah, he was talking about it, and I was just thinking, I was like, oh yeah, that's the fucking example of delayed gratification, is planting trees that are going to be this beautiful orchard he'll never get to appreciate.
Is that because where does the gratification ever come in?
Because somebody's going to get to appreciate it. Like that's like the utmost delayed gratification. That's the delayed gratification for somebody else. You know, I guess
it depends, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but like, just to be
there's like an orchard there that he'll never get to appreciate, but other people will.
It would utterly depend on what he was thinking when he did it.
And that's what he was saying. He was saying like, I'll never see these trees. I'll never get to taste the fruit. But somebody will. He
also might be doing that out of the instant gratification of being validated for doing that. Ooh. You get what I'm saying? Like that's a tricky one because really there is no delayed gratification for him there. Right, it was an instant gratification. He's done with it. He already did it.
George Harrison, you phony. The Beatles are fake. Knew those guys were full of shit.
Dude, that's terrible. But I'm not trying to dog on George Harrison or anybody, but my whole skeptic flag just is like broken up now, man, because of all this constant validation and all this consistent like, look at me. Like, and I'm not saying that's going on.
He didn't ask those TV cameras to come there and look. They were just there, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And he's just like, "Oh, plant
trees, man." Why? Because they're trees.
Because somebody's gonna enjoy them later.
Well, what's the meaning? The trees.
Oh man,
what did the trees do?
Shout out to Holden Armstrong for being the fucking coolest artist ever, man. He's this dude here in Lincoln, and he's so out there, and he just does art for the sake of doing art, and it's beautiful. And yeah, when we ask him like, or he was at a comic convention, and somebody was like, what does this mean?
He's like, it's the art, man. What's the art? The meaning.
What's the meaning? The art. That was great.
But that's beautiful in a way, because that is maybe I'm just jumping on this real too fast, but that's a cool personal responsibility. That dude is doing him. He took utter personal responsibility just to make his life better for him. He doesn't need anybody else to validate it. It's not some overarching team mentality.
Yeah.
And I bet he's a pretty groovy dude.
He enjoys making art, and that's why he does it.
Yeah.
He doesn't need anybody else to buy it or validate or anything. I'm sure it would help. You should buy Holden Armstrong's things. For sure. But
so he can make
Meat Salad. Art. Check out Meat Salad on Instagram.
Meat Salad is amazing.
But yeah, it's like he's gonna do it whether people are buying it or not. Like, and that's the point, man. Like, that's like.
And it's not like he's not doing it because he's a victim circumstance in the capitalist society that nobody's going to buy his art and he can't make a living for it. So why the fuck do it? He's still doing it. Mm-hmm. So maybe the best example, but you get my point. Mm-hmm. He didn't victimize himself out of doing something because you know what? Why do it, man? It's pointless. It's worthless. Nobody's going to buy it and blah, blah.
Because it's fucking awesome. That's why.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do that.
Meat Salad, Instagram.
That's a good example.
Follow that shit.
Of personal responsibility. You know?
Yeah, the artist, right? Like,
yeah, a lot of that could work for sure. Well, what else you got, man?
Yeah, sorry to my buddy George Dielman, who's song I butchered on the guitar last week. I thought I could play it from memory, and
You gonna take us out on something here?
yeah. I did practice this week. My buddy Ben Shaw is actually getting married soon, and I remembered this riff that he taught me a long time ago, and it's really pretty. So I'll play it for us on our way out. Do you have anything else you want to close us out on, Levi?
No, just that. When are we going live with these now?
I'm shooting for October 1st.
Okay, cool.
I think
All
so.
right,
It's
then
coming up.
I won't say anything about the upcoming week, as nobody will know.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll have more October 1st.
Right on. So yeah, peace, love, and chicken grease, everybody. We're out of here.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jesse Butterfield. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye. Love you, Bean Shaw.